facets of self-compassion. Those include self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. So self-kindness is having an understanding behavior toward oneself in the face of suffering. So basically, it's really reducing that self-criticism and that blame that sometimes we put on ourselves when things don't go well. So we need to learn to be kind to ourselves and not so hard on ourselves and be forgiving of ourselves. And that is part of self-compassion. Common humanity, the second facet of self-compassion, that is the perception and classification of one's experiences as part of mankind rather than an interpretation that is separate from others. So what does that mean? It means that everyone makes mistakes, right? And that the way that you feel after making a mistake, many people feel the same way. So we have to realize that the feelings that we have, any feeling that we have of guilt or blame or just anxiety or stress or being overwhelmed, those are feelings that everyone is also having in that same situation. So we should not feel isolated. Part of self-compassion, common humanity, is making sure that you don't feel like you're the only one going through this difficulty, right? You're the only one this is happening to, right? That's not true. It's all about common humanity, meaning that others are going through similar feelings, similar type of processes, and we have to recognize that, and that is part of self-compassion. The third facet of self-compassion is mindfulness, and this is the balanced awareness of negative thoughts and feelings rather than their over-identification. So we have to be mindful when we have these negative thoughts in ourselves and about ourselves, right? When we feel blame and guilt and shame when we make a mistake or things don't go well, right? We have to be mindful of the fact that we're having these negative thoughts, and we have to reframe those thoughts into something positive and not over-identify with them, meaning like not overreact to those negative thoughts, right? Try to learn from what might have happened, but to change those negative thoughts into something positive, and not overreact to those negative thoughts then. In another video, I talk a lot more about mindfulness, so you can check that video out. I'm not going to go into a lot of details about it, but it is a form, or it is a facet of self-compassion, and mindfulness can help develop self-compassion as well then. So to summarize these three facets of self-compassion, we talk about mindfulness. So that's self-compassion involving and recognizing that you are stressed and that you're struggling, and not being judgmental about it and not overreacting to it. The self-kindness, so being supportive and understanding towards yourself well, when you're having a hard time rather than being harshly self-critical. And that connectedness or that common humanity that we talked about. So remembering that everyone makes mistakes and experiences difficulties, and that you're not alone in this. Self-compassion is about acknowledging your feelings and recognizing that others likely feel the same in a similar situation, right? So what does that mean? So when you feel like you need to hug someone because of their difficulty, self-compassion is that hug, right? We all need a hug sometimes, right? So self-compassion is in any given moment when you're struggling or you're going through difficulty and you wish there was someone around to hug you, self-compassion is giving yourself a hug, right? Helping you feel that warmth and that kindness and that forgiveness by doing that. So I think that's a very important aspect that we all need to recognize, and that's what self-compassion is all about then. So again, when you have self-compassion, you don't consider your own mistakes with a harsh and negative emotional feelings, right? You frame them into something more positive, and that can help develop your well-being. So you're nicer to yourself, you're more kind to yourself, right? So when you make a mistake, you learn from it, you grow from it, you develop from it, right? And that's a positive. So you try to take the negative and you turn into a positive by being, again, less harsh on yourself and less negative and less critical, and less blaming yourself, but learn to be nicer to yourself, more kind to yourself, more forgiving of yourself. And that's a part of the positive thoughts that you can then reframe something, mistake that you might have made, to learn from it and grow from it. Part of self-compassion is reflection, and that can really help increase your self-compassion. So kind of reflecting on the situation and what happened, and what you can learn from and how you can grow from it. So that's part of that reflection. Also, self-compassion is working towards being better and not perfect. I think this is so important, right? Because again, we're perfectionists in the healthcare field as a medical student, as a resident, as a practicing physician, right? We're high achievers. We want to be perfect, right? We set our goals and want to achieve them perfectly, right? But we have to recognize that no one is perfect, right? And our goal is not to become perfect. Our goal is just to become better and just to be able to improve ourselves. And that's what self-compassion is all about, is recognizing that and reflecting on where you can improve yourself, but not thinking that you have to be absolutely perfect. So I think that's a very important part of self-compassion that we as healthcare providers and students and residents and practicing physicians, sometimes we don't recognize that and realize that about ourselves, that we just want to improve and get better and not necessarily shoot for perfectionism, because no one is perfect. So developing self-compassion may be vital for prevention of compassion fatigue and promotion of compassionate care. So it's so important for the care of our patients that we are compassionate, right? But it's so important for our self-care that we exhibit self-compassion as well, right? So we have to keep that in mind. So how do we develop self-compassion? Let's talk about some strategies that can help develop self-compassion. The first strategy I want to talk about is emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence can be one of the ways to develop self-compassion. I've talked about in another video some details about how emotional intelligence skills can help develop resilience. So we know that emotional intelligence skills can really help you build a loving relationship with yourself. Emotional intelligence skills allow you to learn how to respect yourself, how to be kind to yourself, how to be generous to yourself, and how to be forgiving of yourself. And again, these are all aspects of self-compassion. These are all aspects of emotional intelligence that help you develop self-compassion. So again, in another video, I've talked in detail about this, so you can check out that video about emotional intelligence and resilience, but it's definitely related to developing self-compassion. It's very much related to this topic that we're talking about right now. And again, using these EI skills, right? You must learn to have respect for yourself and value your contributions to the team, right? We are not very good at this, right? Because we're very humble, right? We don't do this very well. We don't respect ourselves and the value that we bring to our team and the contribution that we are making to our team, right? So we have to step back and appreciate that and recognize that and have that self-compassion and that self-respect of the value that we bring to our team and the contribution we make to our team. So we need to learn to do that. The second point here, you must be kind towards yourself and not overly critical of your own actions. And, we've been talking about this, about self-kindness as a part of self-compassion. So again, we are our worst critics, right? We are always so critical of ourselves. We need to learn to be kind to ourselves. When something doesn't go well or there's a mistake that's made, again, we need to be kind to ourselves and not overly critical, just learn from it and grow from it and kind of move on from it. The third point, you must be generous towards yourself and give yourself a special treat to celebrate your successes, right? That's part of self-compassion. When you went through a difficulty, you went through a stressful time, right? You went through some sort of suffering or something, right? When you got through it, when you worked through it, right? Celebrate that success, right? Be generous to yourself, right? So you had an exam, you took a shelf exam or a board exam or some sort of tough exam, right? You got through it, you worked hard, it was difficult, it was stressful. After you got through it, celebrate in some way, right? Do something kind to yourself, something generous for yourself to celebrate that whenever you achieve a goal. That's important EI skill, but it's also important to develop self-compassion. The last point here is, again, you must be forgiving of yourself when you make a mistake and learn to forgive yourself so you can move forward and not dwell in the past. Again, forgiving yourself is part of self-compassion. It's an emotional intelligence skill, but it's a part of self-compassion as well. So not to feel guilt and shame, but again, just to learn from it, reflect on it, and then forgive yourself and then move on from it and don't dwell in the past. So again, these are very important emotional intelligence skills related to self-compassion that we must learn to practice on a regular basis to help develop resilience and to help us to prevent us from burning out. So meditation is another type of skill and strategy that can help develop self-compassion. In another video, I talked in some detail about meditation, so you can check that out. But one type of meditation called loving kindness meditation can help develop self-compassion because it's an exercise where you direct compassionate images and thoughts toward yourself and towards others. So it develops compassion and self-compassion. So again, different types of mindfulness and meditation, as in this example, can help you develop self-compassion. And we talked about mindfulness before as a facet of self-compassion, but also it definitely can help develop self-compassion. So there's different type of programs. The specific program called mindfulness-based stress reduction, it can be very helpful in developing self-compassion. It's where you take a non-judgmental approach and you are kind of present in the moment, and this can really help practitioners become less vulnerable to stress and to help to develop self-compassion. And again, this has been studied and it's been shown that this type of mindfulness type of program can significantly increase self-compassion and can increase increased compassion can help decrease stress and can help therefore decrease burnout. So I think this is a very, again, a very important aspect of self-compassion and strategy. So again, this mindfulness type of activities, meditation, emotional intelligence, these are all strategies that can help you develop self-compassion as you develop your own resilience and prevent burnout then. So to kind of summarize, again, we know that self-compassion builds resiliency, which can then protect against depression and anxiety, and it can help increase life satisfaction and optimism and social connectedness and happiness. So again, self-compassion is a very important resilience skill that we must learn and practice. And again, unfortunately, medical students, residents, practicing physicians, we're not really good at this, right? We're not good at practicing self-compassion. So we need to learn to be better at this. We're more kind to ourselves. We are more forgiving of ourselves. We're more gentle to ourselves. That's a very important that we need to learn to do this. So again, in healthcare, we're so focused on being compassionate to others and being compassionate to our patients. But again, we have to be compassionate to ourselves as well. And this self-compassion helps us develop that and helps develop resilience, and that can help reduce the risk of burning out. So it's a very important